put common sense in litigation. I'm sorry, but it should be common sense that you don't kidnap a child and use them as a lab rat. You don't do that just for money? For money? I mean, is money really that important to you? You doctors, psychiatrists, you cops. All of these people, every one of them needs to be exposed. Starting from the doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, the psychiatrists, the social workers, the foster care parents, and the police. Every single one of them has had an opportunity. Not only do they have an opportunity, but they have a responsibility and a duty to stop this, but they don't. They facilitate it. They allow it to go through. I'm sorry, police, but you had an opportunity to stop it and you didn't. You doctors had an opportunity to stop this and you didn't. Because everybody's getting paid. Everybody's getting a kickback. And those police and social workers that aren't getting a kickback, why are you doing this? Why are you facilitating this? Don't you understand that these are human beings? They're no less or no more of a human being than you are. How would you like to be kidnapped as a small child or a teenager? Or as a parent, how would you like to have your child removed? Forcibly from your hands. And I've seen the video. Yeah, there's a lot of videos out there. More and more families are coming forward, and good for them. Good for them. So if you know of a family, you know of legal counsel out there, or if you are a legal counsel and you want to help, or if you want to just get on the horn and make a couple of phone calls for these people. Or if you can design a website, which is very easy to do. They're very easy, a little time consuming, but that's it. If you want to help in some way, some fashion, you get a hold of me through Blog Talk Radio or mrtc2004@aol.com. You email me direct, and I don't mind giving out my personal email address. I get so much junk mail on that address, it's not going to bother me. I filter through the junk mail. That's fine. I do it every day. That's okay. But if you're serious and you want to help, you want to do something about this, you want to fight for these families, you get in contact with me. I'll put you to work. All right, let's get in the scuttlebutt of the day here. Now, before I do that, I have to report that ISIS has now beheaded another hostage. This is a British man, Alan Henning. And now they're promising to behead another American, Peter Kassig, which I'm sure they probably will. Now, this is what really gets me here. Before I get to the actual scuttlebutt of the day, there's a tweet out there, and you know how I feel about Twitter and tweets and all this crap. It's from a Twitter account called I Heart, and they got a picture of a heart, Islamic State. And it says the Islamic State has released a videotape beheading of UK national Alan Henning, promising to execute US national Peter Kassig next. Like they're proud of this. This is the Twitter account, I Heart Islamic State. Now here's what really sets me off here. How in God's name could they possibly take down a mother's social media site for posting pictures of their abused children and the story of how their children were kidnapped from them so they can inform the public of the crimes committed by the DCF? And these are crimes. These are crimes against humanity. These are crimes. Life in prison without parole is the least that they should receive. The least. For all of them. The cops that broke down the door and forcibly removed their child from the hands, I'm sorry, from these parents. That's life in prison without parole. You had an opportunity. You have an obligation, a duty, a responsibility to stop that, and you didn't. You broke into the home with no warrant. On the word of a social worker? A social worker? You never bothered to see the evidence. You want me to break into this home and forcibly remove that child from mother's hands? I'm going to need to see some evidence here. Why do I need to do this? They didn't do it. They just went ahead and did it. They also tackled the father. 3 of them are out there on top of the father in the front yard, so the father couldn't fight back. So these people can just come in here. These cops can just come in here and just forcibly remove that child from that mother's hand. And they had an obligation. They had a duty, a responsibility to stop it, and they didn't. They went ahead and did it. As far as I'm concerned, you are just as guilty as the doctor that did it, the psychiatrist who's putting them on these drugs, the foster care parent that's abusing them. You're all the same. You're all guilty. You are all equally as guilty. Life in prison without parole. That's it. That's the minimum sentence that you get. I'd put you on a work farm for the rest of your life, and I'd make you work. I don't care if you're 93 years old. I'd still make you be out there working. We got to set an example here. But how they can make these mothers take down their social media sites, but they'll let I love Islamic State, I heart Islamic State, that can stay up. They can post pictures of Osama bin Laden and all these other beheadings. That's okay. Post a picture of a person with their head cut off, but you can't post a picture of your child that was abused in foster care. Otherwise, you have to go to jail. I mean, what are you kidding me? What the hell is going on here? What is wrong with this country? What is wrong with people, man? I don't understand this at all. And it gets me I get furious. I do. And I'm sick and tired of losing sleep. I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of being angry. Well, I am. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. Because I can't do anything but what I can do. But I want it done now. I'm out of patience. I want these families reunited now. And I want every one of these foster care parents and these social workers and these doctors, psychiatrists, and the police, and anybody, and the congressmen, governors, every one of them had an opportunity to put an end to it, and they didn't. They are all equally guilty. I want them in jail. All right. Now, I talked about Tara Miller all week. You heard about it. Because I've done nothing but talk about her. I was going to get a phone call from her later this week. Well, today's Friday. However, Tara, the mother, is not feeling very well. And I hope she gets a speedy recovery, too. But I did get a call from the grandmother. And it kind of reminded me of, I grew up, my father died when I was a child. So my mom raised me. And I was raised with my grandparents as well. And my grandfather died a number of years ago, but my grandmother's still around. And they help out. I like to see that. There's nothing wrong with grandparents helping raise children. There's nothing wrong with that. I believe children should be around older people. You can learn a lot from older people, believe it or not. You can learn things from older people that you can't learn from your parents. You can learn things from your parents that you can't learn from your friends. You need it all. So when you've got a grandmother that is that dedicated to their grandson, you don't get to see that very often. So I was very impressed with that one. I was very impressed. A very nice lady. Lois is her name. Very nice family. They're hurt. They're dying inside. And I came this close. I mean, I know I had tears in my eyes because I had to wipe my eyes. And you would think, after all the stories that I have covered on this program, and you've heard them all, because I can't stop bitching about them. All of the stories that I have read, I have heard about, I have covered on this program, you would think I would be a little desensitized at this point. In fact, it's the complete opposite. I'm not getting better with this. I'm getting worse with it. I'm not getting desensitized. I'm getting sensitized more and more every day. I'm getting more angry every day. I'm getting more frustrated every day. I'm getting more hurt every day. These are my brothers. These are my sisters. I don't care. I've never met these people. I don't know who the hell they are. Doesn't matter. They're human. We do not do this to human beings. We do not do this. This is like Middle Ages stuff. I mean, this is medieval. It's evil. Forget about the medieval. It's evil. This is not civilized behavior. These are crimes against humanity. And I can't take it anymore. Well, I get a call from this woman, and she tells me her story. And I took a lot of notes. And I apologize because I'm probably going to get a couple of things mixed up and screwed up and probably wrong. But hopefully, if the mother, Tara, if she's feeling better, maybe next week or the week after, depending on how she feels, I got to get her on this show. You have to hear from her. You have to hear from her own voice. Now, I can only talk about it. I can only swear and bitch and complain and go absolutely nuclear over this stuff. But you can't feel what she is feeling unless you hear directly from the mother. You heard from Michelle Ryder on this program. You heard her directly. Last week you heard Melissa Willis and Melissa Deagle. You heard the emotion in their voice. They broke up. They were crying. My God. These parents are crying every single night. They're crying every single day. That's their children. Look, these children are being used as lab rats. They are dying in these facilities. They are dying in these foster care homes. They are literally dying. Melissa Deagle, her 2 daughters. The foster parents removed their feeding tubes, which is the only way that these girls can eat. Removed their feeding tubes because the tubes are messy, and she didn't want the mess in her house. Imagine that. Imagine that your foster parent says, no, you can't bring these feeding tubes into my house because they're messy. That's the only way the girls can eat. Well, it doesn't matter. They're messy, so I don't want them in here. So they're trying to force feed these girls food. Well, the girls, their stomach is paralyzed. It can't do the job as your stomach and my stomach does. So their food just sits there. Just sits there. And it's painful. These girls are literally starving to death. And nobody wants to do a damn thing about it. And Melissa Deagle, after she comes on this show, it was only like a day or 2 after she came on the show, she had to remove all of her sites, all of her websites. She can't talk. Call her, but I'm not going to call her because I don't want to get her in trouble. I don't want to get her into trouble. She could go to jail. If I were to call her and have a conversation and she was to talk to me about this, she would go to jail. Now imagine that, going to jail for talking about your child being kidnapped and starved to death in foster care, and you can't say anything about it. You have to keep your mouth shut so they can use your children as lab rats. And if they die, oh well, so what? We can get a couple more. Well, this story, I'm going to do the best I can. I know we got a short time to get it in here. His name is Austin. It all started, he was about 8 years old. He's autistic. And we all know about autism. Every autistic kid they're a little bit different. Some of them you can touch and some of them you can't. Some of these autistic kids, not even the parents can touch them. Can't be touched at all. They wig out. They freak out and go absolutely nuts. Just the way it is. It's not the fault of the kid. It's not his fault. It's what this disease does. And nobody wants to understand it. These people, they have no patience for this. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Well, anyway, he's 8 years old. And again, I've got all kinds of notes here, so I'm going to do my best I can. And I hope I don't screw it up. But hopefully sometime in the very near future, the mother can come on the show and she can actually tell you from her words a lot better than I can. But I have to cover this stuff, and I'm not going to leave this stuff alone. I'm going to cover every story that comes before me. Any story that comes before me, I'm going to get it out. This kid is 8 years old, and he's out of school. He's on the playground. Well, evidently there were some kids jumping rope, and he wanted to jump rope, and the kids wouldn't let him. So being autistic, he wigged out, and he threw a ball, and it hit a girl in the face. All right. It happens on the playground. It happens. All right. Well, anyway, he got taken into the principal's office, and probably the principal touched him, and he wigged out, and he hit the principal. He was removed from the school. I can't remember if it was by the school removed them, the DCF removed them, they removed him. However, he got removed from the school, and the parents and grandparents were homeschooling him, which is great. They don't like that, though. The DCF the government doesn't like you homeschooling your children because they can't indoctrinate your children if you're at home. They don't like that. Well, 2 years, I guess, after this incident, they had what they did was they called it a lockdown, and they put him in his room because they wig out, and there's nothing you can do about it. They wig out, and then when they're done, it's like nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. They wig, and then nothing ever happened. So they put him in a room, to kind of calm him down. Well, somehow he got out, and they found him at a strip mall. Then they found him again. I guess he got out again at one point, but they found him in a industrial park. And he asked a fireman for a Band-Aid because he fell down and hurt his knee. So somehow the police got called, DCF got called, and they removed the child from the parent. And they put him in a facility. Austin also has a heart condition, which is not uncommon for autistic children. A lot of times autistic children have other things other than autism. It's all linked up together. Now, I'm a firm believer that these vaccinations that they give, I'm a firm believer there is a lot of links that link these drugs that the government makes your children have. They force these drugs on your children. I am a firm believer that there is links to autism. There's too many kids being diagnosed with autism, and there's too many links with autism and these vaccinations. But nobody wants to do the testing, because if they do the testing and find out that it is an actual link, well then all these people aren't going to make any more money. And you can't have that. People, they need a bigger car. They need a swimming pool. They need a bigger boat. They need that second home on the lake. Come on. Well, this happened on March 20th, on 2009, that I believe he was taken. I believe that's the date. He's now about 11 years old at this point. Well, he's in the foster home, and he wasn't in there for very long. Thrown against the wall, thrown against the floor. Raped. That's right, raped. Forced to masturbate every day for 3 years. Forced to masturbate. Every day for 3 years. When he's in the classes, sometimes he would pull out his penis and start masturbating in front of everybody. Had no idea what he was doing. He was forced to do this by these facilities. Under the foster care, under the DCF. I mean, this is some sick and twisted stuff. At 11 years old, being forced to masturbate every day, I think there's another way to conduct therapy for an autistic child. I mean, I'm just saying. Why they would do that, I don't know. Again, life in prison without any possibility of parole. Me personally, if I was a judge, I would be handing out a lot of death sentences. We don't do that. Nazis did this. Nazis performed these experiments on these kids. We're not Nazis, for God's sakes. We don't do that. We are a civilized nation. How can you call this a civilized nation with this? You can't. This is what it infuriates me. I'm not getting better with this. Again, like I told you, you would think that I would be a little desensitized with this stuff, but I'm not. I'm getting worse. It's getting worse. I'm running out of patience. I don't have any more patience. There's nothing left in the tank. People need to be taken. We need somebody to listen, somebody in a position of authority, somebody in a position of power, just to stand up and say no. But we can't, because everybody's on the take. Everybody's got to get their palms greased. Meanwhile, these kids are dying. But nobody cares. Nobody cares. As long as you're getting paid, who gives a damn? These parents are dying inside. They've lost their children. Imagine that. Just think how you would feel at a young age being ripped away from your parents. Or if you are a parent, if your child was ripped away from you. Think about it. It's only going to take about, a half a second before you're furious and want to do something about it? Well, that's me. And I'm not even a parent. I just can't stand this stuff. I don't like people mistreating people for money. Of course, in these facilities, the first thing they do is they tell the child, do not talk to your mother. They don't want you to talk to your mother, because if you do, you're going to tell them what happens in these facilities. And that's what they're trying to hide. Well, if you don't want the child to tell the parents of what goes on in these facilities, don't do what goes on in these facilities. Stop raping the children. Stop physically abusing them, choking them, picking them up and throwing them on the ground. Well, he gets to another facility. He was picked up. He wasn't in there not even a day. I guess it was like the first day. Maybe my notes are a little fuzzy or whatever. It might have been a week. It was very early on in the facility. He was picked up and thrown headfirst into a fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers are metal. They don't have any leeway. So when you hit it, you're gonna feel some pain. You're gonna hurt. Probably got a concussion. More than likely had a concussion, which is the last thing someone who is autistic needs, is a concussion. Concussions can do a lot of damage to the brain. Concussions can do a lot of damage to the brain, and you can't fix it. Once you have brain damage, that's it. You can't repair that. You cannot repair it. It's impossible. So the first thing that they do is they tell the child, do not speak to the parents. Can't speak to them. Don't say anything. Don't talk about anything. That way we can continue to abuse you and get away with it. There was a judge. I guess this was just a little while ago, and the judge was furious. Thank God we got a judge out there that understands. And gave them a week to get him out of that facility. Well, they put him back into another facility. And that's when he was thrown against the fire extinguisher. So it didn't help anything. He's now in a facility. And when I heard the name, she was telling me, I said, well, what's the name of this facility? She says, the National Deaf Academy. And I said, I was like, it's in Mount Dora, she says. And I was like, Mount Dora? Mount Dora. Why do I know that name? Well, first thing out of the box this morning, I read another story about a Mount Dora facility in Florida. It's the NDA. Well, that place is under FBI investigation right now for a lot of abuse. He's still there. They're investigating, but they're allowing this facility to continue with all these abuses. There's two whistleblowers now that used to work there, but they got fired because they dared to call the authorities on the abuse that they saw in this facility. Imagine that. Here you see somebody beating up a child, throwing them to the ground, choking them, raping them, and you get fired for reporting that. Imagine that. Imagine that. Well, that's what's going on. Well, why can't they shut the site down with all of these allegations? And the police have been called numerous times on this facility since it opened. Allegations left and right of abuse, and they can't do anything about it. They can't shut it down for a while. Doesn't anybody care about these kids? Doesn't anybody care that these children are human beings? They're human beings. They've got a mind. They've got a heart. They've got blood. They've got feelings. They've got thoughts. They can think. Doesn't anybody understand that? How can you do that to a child? I don't know. How you can do that to a human? I don't know. I don't get it. There are certain things that my brain just cannot process, and this is one of them. Well, he's 17 years old now. And he's got about roughly 10 months. July 22 is his birthday. So he's got about 10, 11 months before he's finally released. See, because once you become 18, that's it. You're done. You're out. They throw you out on the street. That's it. You're out. Well, what would happen if the child didn't have a parent? What happens if they've been in this custody for so long and they're not allowed to see their parents? The parents, for whatever reason, they pass away. They're dead. What happens to this kid? He's 18. He doesn't know how to function on his own. What's going to happen? Well, he's out on the street. How long do you think before that kid winds up in jail? Well, not very long. So what good did you do for this child? You're supposed to be out there looking out for the well-being of the child, the best interest of the child. Well, how can you be looking for the best interest of the child? Where? Where is the best interest of the child? You're taking him from one facility to another so he can get raped, beaten, and tortured and told not to talk about it. At 11 years old, forced to masturbate for 3 years every single day. For therapy? At 11? Well, that's not therapy, first of all. That's not therapy. That's not real therapy. Why someone would think that this is real therapy, I don't understand how these people are allowed to work in the DCF. You shouldn't be allowed to work in the foster care programs. You should not be allowed to work around children if this is where your head is. If this is what you think is therapy, you shouldn't be allowed to be around children. I mean, how do you, I don't even know. At some point, you know me, I never shut up, but there are just some things, I'm speechless. I don't know how to respond to this. And why can't we find a judge? Why can't we find a cop? Why can't we find one social worker? I know we get a couple of whistleblowers. Okay, big whoop. Why can't we need somebody in a position of power to actually do something? That is why I'm trying my best to get a committee hearing, a real committee hearing. So this can bring national attention to this. And if it's a real committee hearing, the news is going to have to cover it. They're going to be forced to cover it. And that's what is needed here. Where is the media on this? Where are they? Okay, they cover a story here and there. But see, it's boring. It doesn't bring in the ratings. It's not juicy enough. It's not sexy enough. These are children, for God's sakes. These are our little brothers and sisters. The parents are our big brothers and our big sisters. We do not do this to each other. Austin now, in this facility, he's got scars all over him from all the abuse. Bad shoulder. There's obviously a broken bone in like his collarbone or his shoulder or somewhere. And they are refusing to x-ray it, refusing to fix this kid's broken bone. Well, you know what happens with broken bones if they're not fixed correctly? They can turn to gangrene. Gangrene is very serious. Gangrene can do a lot, and you can die from gangrene. But do they care? No. Why? Well, because if they take an x-ray, they're going to have to explain, well, how did this child, or teenager, I should say, not a child, teenager receive these injuries? Well, they're going to have to figure out how they did it. They're going to have to find a way to lie about it. And there's no real way for them to spin it. So they refuse to give this kid an x-ray and have to explain how this kid got his bad shoulder. Whether it's a broken bone or not, I don't know, but I would imagine if it's all swollen and the swelling won't go down, I'm sure this kid is in a lot of pain. Pretty sure. And yet this facility, okay, fine, it's being investigated by the FBI, but it's still open for business. It's not been shut down. You have that many complaints. You shut it down. You take these children and these adults. It's a facility that deals with deaf children and deaf adults and autism. And there are some autistic kids that are deaf, which is one of the only facilities in the country that actually can are supposed to be able to handle deaf and autistic people. They've got children and they've got adults. So I think it's a facility of 100 and I've got the story here somewhere. It's like 100 and some odd beds that they have. Supposed to be one of the best. Obviously, it's not. Well, this family, of course, like all other families, Michelle Ryder is in the same boat. She had to quit her job, who was a nurse for 16 years, a hospice nurse, 16 years. She's out of money. She needs any money that she can get just so she can fight these people. She's still on trial because she dared to get a second opinion. She is now going to be very soon homeless, penniless. Now, how is she supposed to take care of her child when she's homeless and penniless? I mean, what the hell? Well, now this family, Tara Miller and her mother Lois, they've been living in a hotel for 4.5 years. They're out of money. They have no home. They're forced to live in a hotel. They're forced to scrape up enough change so they can buy some minutes on their phone, just to make a phone call. They are forced out on the street. Kid is autistic. And they called the police because the child was that was their mistake. They called the police and the police came. And that was 2 years before he was removed from his parents. And it's unfortunate that you can't call the police and say, hey, my autistic child, he's wigging out, he needs some help. Instead of the police coming there and bringing somebody that is capable and knowledgeable and knows how to deal with these children. Well, they don't. And they don't care. They don't see that part of it. They don't see that part of it. Immediately, they're going to blame their child, blame the parent. It's all the parent's fault. Well, how in the hell is it the parent's fault that the child was born with autism? How is that the parent's fault? Maybe it's the government's fault. That's what they want. They want you to think it's your fault, not their fault. That's the government for you. It's never the government's fault. They're giving these vaccines that are creating all these children being born with autism. What is it now? What is the number of kids being born with autism? It's a ridiculous number. It's like, what, 2, 3, 4 out of 10? It's a stupid number. It's a ridiculous number. Exactly what the real number is, don't quote me on that. I don't know. I just know that the number is ridiculously high. Obviously, there's a link somewhere with something. But nobody wants to find out the answer, because if they find out the answer, somebody's going to get exposed. And somebody's not going to make any more money. And that's what they don't want. The government doesn't want you to know that they screwed up. So instead of getting rid of these vaccinations and maybe get some new ones, they keep giving the vaccinations as if there's nothing wrong. And if something happens, well, it's not our fault, it's your fault. You're the parent. So now we got to take the child so we can use them as lab rats and give them more drugs. Well, the drugs that they were giving this kid, this Austin, he was on that, what the hell's the name of it, Abilify. And she went down the list of all the drugs that this kid was on, and I was just like, oh my God. I mean, she got me drunk just listening to all the names. Well, we've had Jim Gottstein on this program before, and he's explained to what these drugs actually do. His fiancée, Nancy Rubenstein, has been on this show. She has told you what these drugs have done because she is going through it herself. She went on these drugs. She knows firsthand what these drugs can do. Well, these so-called antipsychotic drugs are not really antipsychotic. They're psychotic. They make the people bipolar, which means that you're either really down or you're really up. You're really violent, blah, and then when you're not, well, then you're really down. Well, that's not healthy. That's not good. That's not helping the situation. It's bad enough this kid has got autism. He does not need to be on a cocktail of drugs. I'm sick of these damn drugs and these pharmaceutical companies. They're making tons and tons and tons of money. All these doctors that prescribe it, they're getting kickbacks from these drugs. Pfizer, we went over that yesterday. What was it? 170,000 doctors are getting kickbacks from Pfizer alone. How do these doctors justify it? How do these pharmaceutical companies justify this? How do they do that? How do these people sleep at night? I can't sleep at night. I don't even know these kids. I don't even know these parents. So how in the hell can these people sleep at night, knowing that they have removed a child from the parent for no reason other than wanting to get a second opinion, or their child's autistic and he gets a little rowdy from time to time? Well, that's part of the disease. You have to deal with it. You have to cope with it. You have to learn how to handle it. And removing them from the parents is not going to help the problem. It's only going to make it worse. And you don't force an autistic kid to masturbate every single day. Now he doesn't know what he's supposed to do, so he's in public, so he just whips it out and starts going to town. And then he gets in trouble for that. Well, the kid doesn't know any different. How do you sleep at night after you choked a kid? How do you sleep at night after you raped a child? How do you sleep at night after you've taken an autistic child and thrown him headfirst into a fire extinguisher? Thrown him headfirst into the ground. You break his collarbone and won't give him an x-ray. How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night of giving these children all these drugs, knowing damn good and well it's only gonna make the problem worse? How do you people sleep at night? How do you do that? How do you get up in the morning and feel refreshed? How do you do that? Turn that off in your head and go to a party. hang out with your friends, telling jokes, laughing, going out to the movies. How do you do that? How do you live with yourself? If I were to take a kid, whether he had autism or not, and throw him headfirst into a fire extinguisher, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. But that's me. I'm crazy. I'm a whack job. I know. I deal with common sense and logic and all that stuff. I know. I'm crazy. There's something wrong with me. Ugh. Well, this isn't going to get any better. This is not going to get any better until the American people stand up and fight. I can only do so much on this radio program. I can only bitch, piss, and moan so much. I can only bring on so many guests on my program and have them tell you their stories, which I will continue to do. These people take precedence. Anytime these families want to come on my program, they are welcome. No questions asked. Their stories must get out. But unless we, as the American people, collectively, as one, rise up and say no more, stop raping our children, kidnapping our children, stop putting our children on these drugs, stop abusing our children physically, mentally, emotionally, until we rise up and demand that this stop, it's not going to stop. These are bullies. Bullies are cowards. See, a coward's only going to pick on someone that he can pick on. A coward isn't going to pick on the biggest kid in the block. They're going to pick on the little one. Just like a lion, when they're hungry and they see a herd of wildebeest out there, they're not going to go for that big daddy bull. Oh, no, because that daddy bull is going to fight back. And lions don't want to get hurt. They want to eat. So what do? They attack the little bitty baby. Because they can kill that one, and they can eat it. They can't eat the daddy, but they can eat that little baby. Because the baby can't fight back. These are bullies. And there's only one way to stop a bullying you. At some point, you're going to have to rise up and punch a son of a bitch in the nose. Let him know you're not going to do this to me anymore. Well, that's us. That's the American people. We have to rise up to this bully. You understand? We have to rise up and demand this. But first, we have to know what's going on. Yeah, Justina Pelletier got national attention for what? About a week? And then what? Well, it got off the news. We don't hear about it anymore. It's off the television. So people are back watching the Kim Kardashian show, eating Cheetos. They don't have time to be bothered with all of this stuff. And it's always the parents' fault. Oh, well, the parents, they must have done something. Ah, no, the DCF and the police wouldn't just remove a child from a parent if they hadn't done anything. Well, they do. Every one of these cases that I've talked about, every single one of them is all the same. There's too many of them out there. There's far too many of them out there to be the parent's fault. Not the parent's fault. It's not the child's fault. It's the child's fault? The parent's fault for being autistic? It's the parent's fault for demanding a second opinion? Like the story we talked about last night. And like I talked about again today. The woman has an infant. And the doctor said, well, we need to perform heart surgery on the infant. Well, heart surgery on anybody, I don't care how old you are, is very dangerous. It's not like, getting a tooth pulled. It's a very dangerous operation. I remember when my grandfather got open heart surgery and he was in his 70s. The doctor told him, get a second opinion. So he did. Well, nowadays you can't do that. If you get a second opinion, Well, they're going to take away your child because they want to use that kid as a test subject for research. What research? Why do you need to research? Well, she took the child, got a second opinion. The doctor released the baby back into her custody from the other hospital. And the first hospital they had, they didn't like that. They found out about it. They didn't like it. So they called DCF and said, yeah, the parents are medically neglecting their child. So you need to have them removed. Just so the doctor can get another kickback. I mean, he's got to get that new car. I mean, how is he supposed to put that new swimming pool in the backyard his wife has been bitching at him about for how many years to put in there, and he hasn't done it. So he's trying to get her off his back. Are you people really that hard-pressed for money? You doctors are really that hard-pressed for money? Really? Is that what this is all about, money? What is this about? I know it is about money, but it's got to be about something else. What it is, I don't know. Look, there's nothing wrong with going in a research program if you give consent. But see, if the parent doesn't give consent, then the DCF and the foster care and the doctors, they can't use that child as a lab rat. But if they become a ward of the state, which I hate that term, ward of the state? A ward of the state? You're not a ward of the state. You're not owned by the state. Last time I checked, we still had a 13th Amendment in our Constitution. Let me see if it's still in here. See, this is one of the last remaining copies of the Constitution. The government hasn't been able to take this one away from me yet. And they're not going to do it. I won't let them. I will not let the government take this Constitution away from me. They won't even be able to remove it from my cold, dead fingers. My fingers will not allow it to go, no matter how dead I am. Well, there it is. There's the 13th Amendment still in here. There it is. Slavery abolished. There it is, right there. It was ratified on December 6th, 1865, right there. Okay. Well, that's what these wards of the state are. They own these children, which means they can do anything they want to with them. You're a ward of the state? My God, I hate that term. That is a disgusting term to use. We don't do that in this country. I don't care if they're autistic or not. I don't care if they're not autistic. I don't care if they got a disease. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who they are. They're a human being. These are human beings. They're flesh and blood. They're not numbers. They're not robots. They're not machines. They are humans. You can't own a human. You cannot use a human as your own personal lab rat to conduct medical experiments on. God only knows what they did to this kid with all the drugs that he was on. God only knows. They're only making the problem worse. That Abilify, all of those psychotic drugs, all of them, they're dangerous drugs. They are a narcotic. Look at every one of these mass shootings that we've had. Every single one of them, guess what? All these women that have been on these drugs and they've had their children. They've got children, they go on these drugs, and then when they get off of them, this is what happens. Your brain doesn't know how to function. Once you get on these psychotic drugs, your brain does not know how to function on its own. So then when you get off of the drugs, well, the brain wigs out. It freaks out. Short circuits. Doesn't know what to do. And you do get homicidal. You do become suicidal. That's what these drugs do. There was more and more evidence every single day. And nobody wants to acknowledge it. How many more of these mass shootings do we have to have before finally somebody says, you know what, these psychotic drugs are not working? Now, they may work for some, but they're not going to work for all. And once you get off of them, that's what happens. You immediately go into bipolar. You either get high or you get really low. They do become homicidal, suicidal. And for what? That new car was really that important to you? You destroyed a human life? And their lives are being destroyed with this. It's destroying their brain. They don't know how to function. They don't even know what they're doing. But as long as people get paid, that's okay. That's okay. Another mass shooting? Oh, well. We'll just remove the guns. Well, that'll do it. Well, how's that going to do it? You can remove all the guns in the world. You think that's going to stop people from killing people? People have been killing people forever, long before the gun. If you have the will to kill, you will kill. It has nothing to do with the gun. This is what drives me nuts with government. They just can't see. They just can't see what the real problem is. I fear for this family. I really do. I was sick to my stomach when this grandmother was telling me this. I literally was. I couldn't believe it. Well, I can believe it. It's almost surreal, but it's not. It is real. It's actual. An autistic kid forcibly removed from his parents because he's autistic. So he broke out of the house and they found him. What's going to happen? It's going to happen. At that point, you know what they should have done was said, you know what, we understand. It happens, your child's autistic, okay. We found him, he's safe. Here you are, Mom. Take your kid back home. But they didn't want to do that. No. Can't do that. It's all Mama's fault. She's a bad parent. She's a bad parent because she cared about her child and was homeschooling him. How many parents homeschool their kids that are bad parents? How can you call a parent a bad parent for homeschooling your child? To me, anymore with the public school system, you're a bad parent if you send your child to public school. You're a good parent if you homeschool them. We've all seen what the public school system has done to children. We've all seen that. We know what they're doing. We know what they're doing. They're not teaching, they're indoctrinating. And for what? It's power. It's control. Power and control is tyranny. That's all this is about. They've got to have the power no matter what. Why? What do you win with all this power? What do you win with all this tyranny? You have all this control of all these people. What do you win? What do you get out of it? What's the prize? Huh? What is the prize that you get? What is that prize of having total control, tyranny over another human being, over a group of people? What is that? What do you get out of it? Huh? I don't know. I can't figure it out. It makes no sense to me at all. Absolutely no sense. Well, I feel for this family. Actually, I feel for all of them. But this one in particular. This kid has been held in captivity since 2009, approaching, 2015? This kid is going to stay there till he's 18, and then he's just going to be shoved out. Okay, here you go. And once the parents get this child back, and there's a good chance, according to Grandma, Lois, there's a good chance that here, I believe, when is the case? Is it October 13th? October 13th is another hearing. There's a good chance that he might go home. Well, okay, fine. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that Austin, on October 13th, is released back to his parents. Now what? Well, now Mama and Grandma, who are taking care of the child, they've got a brand new baby on their hands. That they have to be reunited reacquainted with each other. They have got to start all over again. All over again. Like he just was first born. And for what? And now they're living in a hotel. And now what's going to happen? What they're going to say, well, wait a minute. We can't release this child into the mother's custody. They don't even have a home. They're living in a hotel. That's not the best interest for the child. Oh, but raping him and throwing him headfirst into a fire extinguisher, that is the best interest of the child? Excuse me? Well, I would rather have the child living in a hotel with loving parents. And I say parents because mom and grandma, they're both parents. Parents are your guardians. Whatever. I would rather have that child in a hotel with loving parents, care facility, who's going to rape him, throw him headfirst into the wall and fire extinguishers, break his collarbone and not give him an x-ray. Even if he is poor, he's got love. Love goes a long way in this world, believe it or not. Love goes a lot farther than abuse. Love can go a lot farther than a punch in the nose, slap in the face, a broken bone, a cracked skull. That's what's important, and that's what's missing in these cases. The fact that the DCF, the judges, the psychiatrists, the social workers, the foster care parents, the police, which I've lost a lot of respect for you police officers, I'm sorry, but no. You want my respect, you're going to have to earn it. When you have the ability to stop this and you don't, you facilitate it, you help it, you are just as guilty as the rest of them. Just as equally guilty. And what do? Well, they get promoted. They did their job. Oh, I'm just doing my job, just doing what I'm told. It's not my fault. I'm just doing what I'm told. Really? Well, every single one of those guards in the towers of Auschwitz, they were just doing what they were told. They were just doing their job. Well, what was it? It was about a year ago. Finally caught the last one. I think the man was like 92, 93 years old. He was a guard in a tower in Auschwitz. They found him. They threw him in jail, and he's going to stay there until he dies. I don't like that excuse, and I don't buy it. I'm just doing my job. Excuse me? Your job is to break into someone's home and forcibly remove a baby from a mother's arms? Based on hearsay? With no evidence? No due process? Where's your warrant? Where is your warrant signed by a judge that says you are to remove that child immediately because the child's health is in danger? The child's life is in danger. Where is that? Did you bother to ask, cop? Huh? How about it, cop? Did you bother to ask that? Did you bother to ask that social worker? Well, where's your evidence that this child is being abused? Did you bother to ask the doctor? Bother to ask anybody? No. You bring about 12 of you in there. You tackle the father outside who just happened to be watering the lawn or whatever he was doing. You tackle him to the ground. 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them. Then you break into the woman's home. She's seen what was going on, so she turned her video camera on. Thank God she did. Well, I do pray for this family, and I want you all to pray for all these families. But praying isn't going to work enough. We need more than praying. You can't expect God to do your work for you. God can do a lot of things, but he can't do everything. You eventually are going to have to get your ass off that couch, turn off that stupid Kim Kardashian show, and put down that bag of Cheetos, roll up your sleeves, and actually do the work yourself. If we are going to end this, we have to end it. When I say we, I mean all of us. all Americans. These are our brothers. These are our sisters. And they're being torn apart. We are going to be the ones who have to solve this problem. But if we're not going to do anything, we are the problem. We're not part of the problem. We become the problem because we are allowing it to happen, which makes us just as equally guilty as the cops, the doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, psychiatrists, the social workers, the foster care parents, all equally guilty. We can't have this anymore, folks. Can't have it. This family's being torn apart. They've been living in a hotel for 4.5 years. They went bankrupt trying to fight this. And they have very little. Very little. They need help. They need help. I just hope October 13th, which can't get here soon enough. I just hope that judge realizes of what actually happened, pays attention, and says, you know what? This child is to be put back into the care of the parents immediately. And if not, well, those that don't this child back into the care of the parents, you're going to be in contempt and you're going to spend some time in jail. Well, this facility that he's in here right now. Let's get into this story here. I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's a long story, and what I don't finish tonight, I'm going to have to finish on Monday. But they're being investigated by the FBI for abuse and neglect. They're raping kids. They're choking these kids. Physically, mentally abusing them, giving them God knows what kind of drugs that they're actually giving them. And a lot of these parents don't even know what's going on. They're told that this facility is so great and wonderful. They go and visit it. And, of course, they put on a hell of a show. Look at this. Look what we can do. It's a ruse. One of the employees, Carol Savage, said she told the supervisor after one incident that the police should be called. Well, the supervisor said, and I quote, No, we don't call the police here. Really? Because they might find out that there's more abuse going on and you might lose your job and you're not going to get that bonus, so you're not going to be able to get that new car that you wanted? This has nothing to do with money. This has to do with you not doing your job. Yeah, autistic kids need a lot of care. There's a lot of work to these kids. A lot of work. And if you can't handle it, you need to get out of the business. I mean, my God. Look, not everybody can handle that. I know for a fact I wouldn't be very good at it. I'd give it my best, but I just know me. However, if I had an autistic child, I think that, my mindset would change, and I would figure out a way. I would figure out a way to learn. And that's obviously what this mother was going through and the grandmother was going through. The learning experience not only for the child, but for the parents too. They were doing everything they could. And the grandmother told me all these stories. She's sitting there, after she finally gets him calmed down, and holding him in her arms, giving him love, saying, I love you, it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right, calming him down. Well, you can't get that from a foster care parent. You can't get that from a foster care facility. You can't get that kind of love. You can't get that kind of love. Rape is not love. Physical abuse is not love. Choking is not love. Giving them drugs is not love. Ignoring them is not love. Not giving them the medical care that they need because they got a broken bone and they can't even get an x-ray. That's not love. It comes from the inside, not the outside. And that's exactly what the mother and the grandmother were doing. They were giving, they donated their entire life to their child. Their entire life. But because the kid is, autistic, and he got out of the house, he gets a little rowdy from time to time. It's going to happen. But they were providing care for their child. He had food. He had clothing. He had toys. He had everything he needed. Most importantly, he had a mother and a grandmother that took care of him, being there for him, always being there, in the good and in the bad. Always, always, always being there, 24/7, doing anything you can, devoting your entire life for that child. That's love. That is love. The DCF, the cops, the doctors, the psychiatrists, foster care parents, social workers, they don't see that. The governors, politicians, the lawyers, judges, they don't see that part of it. How they don't see it, I don't know. Why they don't see it, I don't know. I can't figure that out. For the life of me, I cannot figure that out. How can you not see that? Look, I'm sorry, but if it wasn't for peace and love, the human being would have not evolved into the species that we are today. It just wouldn't have happened. Just would not have happened. Every one of these kids in these foster homes, they're not getting any love. What love do they get? These foster care parents can't hold these kids in their arms. They can't give them love. They can't give them love like the parents can. They just can't do it. And nobody wants to see it. Everybody's afraid to open their eyes or they might see something. Yeah, you're going to see that you're wrong, and nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. Well, I know you've heard me bitch about this on this show. Admitting that you're wrong is not a weakness. That's a strength. It takes a strong person to admit that you're wrong. It takes a weak person not to admit that you're wrong. But you can't admit you're wrong just to admit that you're wrong. You have to be proven wrong. Well, I think the proof is overwhelming here. On every single one of these stories, they're all the same. Every single one of them. Every single one of these children that I've talked on here, they've all been abused. They've all been physically abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused, and told, don't speak to your parents. I mean, who says that to a kid, don't speak to your parents? Who says that? Why would you say that? Why would you say that to a child, don't speak to your parents? Well, evidently this child, this autistic child, Austin. Now, my mom worked with a lot of kids in her school days. This was before autism became a household name. But a lot of these kids, they couldn't read or write, but you give them a math problem and forget about it. I mean, you give them calculus and they do it in their head. But they can't read and they can't even write their own name. That's just the way it is. Why it is the way it is, I don't know. I didn't invent autism. I just know what it does. Well, this kid really can't read very well. He can't write. He's in like the second grade level. But he's got a memory, I guess. I guess he's got a hell of a memory. He can remember anything and everything. Remember everything. Well, he can talk. Well, they don't like that fact that this kid can talk. My God, the stories that this kid could probably tell would probably blow your mind. Well, I'm sure they're afraid that this kid is going to talk. This child needs to be removed from this facility immediately. I just hope and pray that October 13, the judge realizes that, look, all the problems that's going on in this facility and everything that these parents have been doing for the past 5 years, that they've had enough. And it's time to reunite the child with the parent. He's not a child anymore. He's a young man. He's not a child anymore. He is a young man, 17, with the mind of an 8-year-old. He's still a human being. He doesn't deserve to be punished. He's still a human being. Just because you're mentally retarded or you've got Down syndrome or you're autistic or you're blind or you're deaf or you're handicapped in some way, you're crippled, you can't walk or you can't talk, you're a human being. You are a human being with thoughts and feelings. You're not a machine. And you're certainly not a ward of the state. I hate that. Damn it to hell, I hate that. The state cannot own another human being. And if they're going to if they're supposed to be wards of the state, they're looking out for the best interest of the child, why did they put them in all these foster care homes where they're only going to be physically abused not only by the foster care parent, but by the other children that are there? How are you looking for the best interest of the kid? I don't know. I don't see it. Where? Where is it? Where is the best interest of the child? Where is it? What'd you do with it? Huh? Is it in your pocket? Where is the best interest? There is no best interest for the child. The best interest of the child is with the parent. Just because you don't like the fact the way somebody raises their child means you have to remove them? It's your child. You have the right to raise your child your way. Not every parent is going to raise their child the same way. It's not going to happen. And it shouldn't happen. What's right for your child may not be right for your neighbor's child. Look, right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, you are the parent. You are the ward of that child. Not the state. Not the government. I mean, the government, they can't do anything right. When was the last time the government did something successful? Well, it's going to take us, the American people. We are going to have to rise up. We are going to have to fight this. So if you have a decent congressman, I don't. My congressman is worthless. I won't write him. I won't even repeat his stupid name on these airwaves. He's a loser. The guy's a creep. He's not good people. He's bad people, period. And I'm not afraid to say that. He is not good people. He has no business being in Congress. But we have to write these people nevertheless. We have to write them. We have to bother them. Get on the horn. Call them. Bug them. Irritate them. We have to let the American people know about what's happening. There's still a lot of people that don't know. They have no idea what's going on. Justina Pelletier's story's been off the air for how long now? So they've forgotten about it. They have absolutely no idea what is happening. No idea whatsoever what's going on. Well, this is where we come in. We must rise up, stand up, and fight for our brothers, and fight for our sisters, and fight for ourselves. Because if you think for 1 second that you're not going to be next, think again. It's not can or may be next. It is will be next. you will be next. So my thoughts and my prayers go out to this family. And Tara, I hope you're feeling better soon. You can come on this program and we can hear your story from you, directly from you. And that's what it's going to take.